Tonight on CFTK-TV News, the Terrace River Kings accomplished a historic feat. There was a fire in Kitimat yesterday, and AI could very well end up playing a part in firefighting in the future.
Northwest BC's only television news team. We are CFTK-TV News.
Good evening, I'm Cale Maslin, and here's what's making news in the Northwest and beyond. In a report that was put out on their website not too long ago, the BC RCMP announced that they have launched a new tiered auxiliary program. An auxiliary officer's main role is to act as support and to attend events that other officers may not be able to get to. In BC, under their new program, auxiliaries are likely to do work such as check stops, scene security, searches overseen by a uniformed officer, and to attend calls that others may not be able to get to. The previous system for these officers underwent a comprehensive review starting in 2016, and in 2018, it was decided that a tiered system was the best way to go forward. How exactly these tiers will work can be found online at the National RCMP Auxiliary Program website. Fans of Terrace's local CIHL team got a bit of news they had never heard before recently, and it was news that surely was very pleasing to learn.
During the previous weekend, the Terrace River Kings were able to make some major franchise history, as for the first time ever, the team was able to capture the over-a-century-old Koi Cup after defeating the Powell River Regals 5-4 in a game that went to triple overtime, and considering the amount of chances the team previously had at winning the championship, that likely made it even more special.
It was our sixth Koi final in the last 10 seasons, and that was our first win, so we were a little tired of the color silver, so it was time for a gold, and we brought it home.
But the victory was not just a special occasion for the team itself, but for the team's passionate fan base as well.
The support throughout the entire year was amazing. I mean, businesses and the fans in general, I think we had, I don't know how many sellout games this year, but it was crazy. It was an awesome experience. Always fun to play in front of these fans here, especially when they're getting a little rowdy and loud. But and then, to bring the cup back to them and have them celebrate with us is just a great feeling.
And, the fans and the support of the community has been absolutely amazing, even since I started. It's even growing bigger since then, and the fan base has followed us since day one, and you just notice it as it grows every year and as we do well. So it's been awesome for I think the community and the fan base.
This historic win capped off what was a very successful season for the team, as they also managed to capture the CIHL Senior AA Championship earlier in March after beating the Williams Lake Stampeders in a best-of-3 series. That victory was also probably quite significant due to the trophy being named after Cameron Kerr, a former River Kings player who died in a hit-and-run incident from 2018. And with the team being characterized by the players as still on the younger side, the River Kings may not have to wait that long to get their hands on more trophies. For CFTK-TV News, I'm Cale Maslin.
Yesterday, the Kitimat Fire and Ambulance Service had to respond to a call about a fire in the morning that was taking place at 256 3rd Street in Kitimat. According to reports, the fire was started when a high-pressure cylinder was punctured and its contents then caught ablaze. And due to the nature of the fire, namely the contents within the cylinder, firefighters and the RCMP had to evacuate the area while others worked on cooling off the cylinder until all its flammable materials were burnt up. Now, with the fire being fully put out, an investigation is taking place in order to discover the circumstances that led to the cylinder being punctured, as well as to institute measures that will prevent such a type of fire from happening again. Artificial intelligence could soon play a huge part in fighting our forest fires. The province is able to spend big bucks in the battle, and that includes a new wildfire training center. CTV's St. John Alexander has the details.
Year after year, more intense, more frequent, more difficult to douse. And so now a greater focus on recruiting and on higher education. Students will soon be able to head to university and earn a wildfire degree. Everything from basic training to PhD-level research will be offered.
We know that working in such difficult conditions takes its toll, and we need to support our wildland firefighters to succeed now and for the long term.
The training center at Thompson Rivers University in Kamloops is just one of 30 recommendations made after a series of devastating fire seasons. They include investing in sophisticated technology, including AI, to analyze mounds of useful data.
And using this will help us better react with initial attack, moving resources to the areas ahead of time, being proactive instead of reactive.
The Premier has committed to implement every recommendation, saying the training will also be useful in the event of flooding.
Yes, it's expensive. We spent $1 billion last year responding to fires. Our hope is that investments like this assist us in minimizing the costs that we know we're going to face going forward.
That includes more money to boost equipment and our firefighting fleet. Volunteers and support staff will also be bolstered to help evacuees.
Wildfire in our province is becoming more and more impactful and intense each summer.
As for the training center, courses are still being designed, but the government hopes classes can start next year. St. John Alexander, CTV News, Vancouver.
BC has introduced a bill that would give First Nations the legal right to acquire and hold land without a treaty or other alternatives. The province's Ministry of Indigenous Relations says the bill is aimed at removing a long-standing and discriminatory barrier to First Nations land title rights. The bill, if passed, would allow federally recognized First Nations to register at the Land Title Office and acquire property directly under their own names. Currently, First Nations need to create corporations or proxies to acquire and hold land unless there is specific legislation, such as a treaty to enable direct title ownership. Coming up next is further reaction to the recent deadly Israeli airstrike. Welcome back. The Israeli government says it is planning to adjust its war tactics in Gaza in the aftermath of killing 7 aid workers.
Clearly something went wrong here. And as we learn more and the investigation reveals exactly what happened and the cause of what happened, we will certainly adjust our practices in the future to make sure that this doesn't happen again.
Monday's deaths have stoked Western anger over the mounting death toll in Gaza. Australian, British, and Polish citizens, as well as a dual Canadian-U.S. national, are among those killed. The Canadian who died, Jacob Flickinger, was originally from Quebec. The Prime Minister addressed Netanyahu directly about the attack.
We need a fully open, transparent, independent, and rapid investigation into what happened. I have to directly take issue with what Prime Minister Netanyahu said yesterday when he said, well, this just happens in conflicts and in wartime. No, it doesn't just happen, and it shouldn't just happen.
U.S. President Joe Biden also recently wrapped his call with Benjamin Netanyahu after the two leaders discussed the attack and the U.S. response to it.
The President emphasized that the strikes on humanitarian workers and the overall humanitarian situation are unacceptable. He made clear the need for Israel to announce a series of specific, concrete, and measurable steps to address civilian harm, humanitarian suffering, and the safety of aid workers.
Now to a story about a surprise cancer diagnosis and bill for the emergency room visit. But we're not talking about a case in the U.S. A Richmond man has been searching for answers after discovering he doesn't have health care coverage. CTV's Penny Dafla started looking into his case and has the full details.
An ambulance took Andy to Richmond Hospital after he kept fainting at work a few weeks ago, where he got a shocking diagnosis.
I have lung cancer, a type of lung cancer that goes in your lymph nodes.
He's asked us not to use his full name out of fear it could impact his situation. Before he left the ER, he was asked for his MSP number and things went sideways.
It was accusational.
Because staff told him he wasn't covered and owed $3,700 for the visit.
Said, well, you'll just have to pay for it today. And I hadn't been to a doctor in over 40 years. And I started crying when she said that.
They had no explanation for why he'd been dropped.
Andy has faced housing challenges, and an MSP staffer suggested his address was wrong, but that still left Andy and his sister baffled. BC eliminated MSP premiums in 2020, and Andy has a personal health ID he used without issue for COVID vaccinations.
He never goes to the doctor. He's never sick, so he just assumed everything's good. You know, how would you know? I don't know how you would know. It's a hard way to find out.
They were told he'd have to apply like newcomers and wait the standard 3 months for coverage. CTV News has been trying to sort out the issue with the Ministry of Health over 2 days and asked for an interview with the minister who faced heavy fire in the legislature.
The reality is far from a rosy picture he's trying to paint.
Our healthcare system's in crisis. We're concerned every time that someone has challenges in facing the healthcare system.
Despite facing bills for his treatment, Andy has nothing but praise for those caring for him.
Overwhelmingly beautiful. Every other doctor and nurse that I've spoken to, it's just been amazing. And I'm feeling in great spirits.
Andy and his sister have spent weeks trying to get answers. Hours after we interviewed them, the Ministry of Health told CTV News Andy has been approved for retroactive coverage, and they're not sure what went wrong. Anyone unsure of their coverage should check with Health Insurance BC. Penny Daflos, CTV News, Vancouver.
Turning to tonight's weather, the north coast is set to get some periods of rain while the low gets down to 3 degrees. The Terrace-Kitimat area will likely get rain too, and maybe flurries as well with their low at 2 degrees. And the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District is supposed to only be mainly cloudy, but instead with a low of -3 degrees. On the north coast, the upcoming week should consist entirely of rain, while the high shifts from 8 to 6 degrees. In the Terrace-Kitimat area, the next week or so should also mainly just get rain, but with possible snow and flurries, with their high bouncing between 6 and 8 degrees. And in the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District, the week for them will likely see some chances of rain to begin before becoming a mix of sun and cloud, and the high for them will move from 6 to 10 degrees. Checking out the highways now, visit Drive BC for the latest and up-to-date conditions, and as always, drive safe out there. On Highway 16, there is slippery sections, utility work, bridge maintenance, and road sweeping, plus the Usk Ferry is out of service and the cable car is in effect. Highway 37 has some slippery sections too, some more slippery sections on the Nishka Highway, and the Telegraph Creek Road has muddy and slippery sections. And this is what the roads were looking like this afternoon around the region from the view of the province's highway cams. Still to come, the opposition continues to go after the NDP over items like nurse safety. Welcome back. The opposition hammered the NDP for 2 straight days about open drug use at hospitals and concerns raised about nurse safety. Their issues BC United blame on decriminalization. CTV's Rob Buffum is the story.
Why is it the Premier putting the rights of patients and nurses and newborn babies to be safe in a hospital over the rights of open drug use of meth, crack cocaine, and fentanyl?
Outrage for the second day running at the legislature over nurses' safety in BC hospitals. A leaked internal memo from Northern Health suggests weapons are allowed in hospitals and serious drugs could be used without any recourse for nurses.
Reports of meth being smoked in a unit just hours after the birth of a newborn baby. That's what nurses are saying, and that's what's going on in hospitals.
The province says the memo from last July predates policies regarding decriminalization, was poorly worded, and doesn't reflect policies that prevent drug use. Apart from a handful of safe consumption sites, the health minister says security has been hired to keep weapons out, but acknowledges drugs do get consumed in hospitals where they shouldn't.
Just as elsewhere, not everybody follows the rules. And that presents real difficulties, practical difficulties, for healthcare workers and for staff.
The Premier also responded today.
And just to be totally clear, you're not allowed to smoke in the hospitals. You're not allowed to vape in the hospitals. You're not allowed to have weapons in the hospital. And that clarity, I think, is important and unfortunate that we have to say it out loud.
But it appears it does need to be said. The nurses union says a growing number of members feel unsafe amidst growing drug use in hospitals across BC.
Unfortunately, there have been a rise in situations where nurses are being exposed to illicit substances in the workplace. So it is a concern.
The opposition drawing a straight line from decriminalization to drug use at hospitals. The nurses' union supports decrim but says health authorities aren't doing enough to keep them safe, including establishing more safe consumption sites at hospitals.
Nurses in general do not feel supported by their employers.
As more nurses complain about drug use where they're trying to help patients.
We've come to expect long wait times in the ER as a staffing crisis and an aging population make greater demands on the system. But now Canadians are reportedly waiting longer for certain priority surgeries. CTV's Garrett Berry has the story.
Canadian hospitals are doing more surgeries than before, but they haven't yet caught up and cleared the big backlog that was caused by COVID-19. For hip and knee replacements, wait times have been pretty stagnant. They're better than last year, but still longer than they were pre-pandemic. That's according to new numbers released today by the Canadian Institute for Health Information. For knee replacements, less than 2/3 of patients are being treated within benchmark times, and hip replacements aren't much different.
There are numerous factors, including just the lingering effects of the disruptions due to the COVID-19 pandemic with delayed surgeries and procedures. So we see health systems are catching up.
Across the country, patients are also waiting longer for diagnostic tests like MRIs. Patients in Newfoundland and Labrador, like Crystal Vatcher, are now receiving letters telling them their appointment isn't for 2 years. It's been heartbreaking.
Like, I gotta push through. This is our life. This is what we do, between fighting for services and fairness for Caden, being nonverbal autistic, and just now I gotta fight for my own.
Some experts say creative solutions are required to get more people working on the wait lists.
Physician assistants, for example, could be engaged in helping solve the process, so growing our surgical team, our multidisciplinary surgical team.
Health officials in Newfoundland and Labrador say they are assessing whether another MRI machine is needed. They're also committing to running the machines they do have more often to clear up some of that wait list. Garrett Berry, CTV News, St. John's.
A shocking video of a motorcyclist racing down the Lionsgate Bridge is catching the attention of people online and the police. The biker appears to have posted the video showing himself going more than 200 kilometers an hour. As CTV's Abigail Turner reports, some believe that stricter fines would end up preventing this kind of dangerous driving.
A high-speed, reckless video of a motorcyclist racing down the busy Lionsgate Bridge. The driver weaving in and out of traffic, appearing to clock more than 200 kilometers an hour, nearly 4 times the limit. An incredible risk to both the driver and others on the road.
100% death, most likely. And unfortunately, that's going to be for the rider, but unfortunately, it's going to be for traffic around them.
Shockingly, the motorcyclist doesn't appear to crash.
At those speeds, there's just no accommodation for any errors or mistakes. It's all over.
The video appears to have been posted online by the driver himself, something that could have far bigger implications down the road.
If you post actions online that are criminal, you can be charged. And police are watching social media for evidence of people committing offenses.
But this motorcycle driving instructor doesn't believe the fines go far enough.
Right now, speeding tickets, points, it's something, but as what has been shown to us in the past several years is those don't really work.
In 2018, a 68-year-old doctor was killed on Oak and 41st on his way to work. Dashcam footage shows a driver traveling nearly 3 times the speed limit. The 35-year-old driver was sentenced to 18 months in jail and given a 5-year driving ban. According to ICBC, this driver could face a ticket of up to $438, among other fines.
If there was a criminal conviction for dangerous driving, there's also an automatic 1-year driving prohibition that happens under Section 99 of the Motor Vehicle Act. And there's the potential to face longer driving bans if the court decides to impose them.
The Vancouver Police Department told CTV News investigators from its traffic division are aware of the video and are looking into it, but there's no word on whether any arrests have been made. Abigail Turner, CTV News, Vancouver.
And now we turn our attention to the stock markets. The Canadian dollar is down 51/10 of a cent. The price of gold is up $36.90. Oil is up 32 cents. Natural gas is up 2 cents. Aluminum is up $15.50. In Toronto, the TSX is up 212.59 points. Venture Index is up 5.45. In New York, the Dow Jones is up 307.06. And Nasdaq is up 199.44. Still ahead is a look at a very talented Vancouver teenager. Welcome back. A West Vancouver teenager has been recognized for his out-of-this-world talent and hard work. He's been invited to one of the world's most prestigious science competitions. CTV's Kevin Chirac has more on the so-called Rocket Boy, who plans to use his skills to make a difference.
A rocket blasts off in California more than 3 kilometers into the sky, reaching a top speed of Mach 1.4. It's the pride and joy of West Vancouver's Jason Zhao.
It was always like my childhood passion.
After a trip to the Kennedy Space Center as a young boy, Zhao was hooked.
These were my very first couple of rockets.
Here's a look at the 17-year-old's workshop, filled with homemade rockets and drones.
I feel like humans were always on the ground and everything, and being able to see something in the air. 2, 1. It's just really spectacular for me.
And for Zhao, this isn't only fun and games. He wants to use his hard work and talent to make a difference.
Last year's wildfires really got me to think this is a very big issue that needs to be solved.
The record-setting devastation sparked an idea for Zhao to help detect and monitor wildfires by combining his 2 favorite hobbies.
The problem with just making a big drone is that a drone needs battery, and flying to a forest wastes a lot of battery life, and it's also very slow. So the specialty of my project is how I put the rocket and the drone together to get this thing to be very fast and also to be very safe.
And his work hasn't gone unnoticed. Zhao was one of 8 Canadians to receive an invite to next month's Regeneron International Science and Engineering Fair in Los Angeles, the world's largest pre-college STEM competition with $9 million in awards, prizes, and scholarships up for grabs.
Basically the highest of highs for all of my projects together, and I'm really happy that I'm going to be able to present this at such a high level.
And like his rockets, Zhao's fueled by a burning ambition.
In the future, I want to start an aerospace company,
working to reach new heights and fulfill a childhood dream. Kevin Chirac, CTV News, West Vancouver.
The BC Wildfire Service says it's conducting multiple prescribed burns starting this week, collaborating with multiple First Nations to reduce fuel and help restore ecosystems. The service says it's identified the so-called burn window for controlled burns outside Cranbrook, Nelson, Headley, Rock Creek, and more, which happens when specific weather and fuel moisture conditions have been met. It says they're hoping there will be minimal smoke, which may be visible from communities near the sites. The Wildfire Service says it successfully burned a 35-hectare site over the Easter long weekend with help from the Williams Lake First Nation, which reduced ground fuels but spared trees that were home to nesting birds. That's all our news for now. From everyone at CFTK-TV News, I'm Cale Maslin. Thanks for watching.